Many years ago, I was struggling financially. In that struggle, I found out that I never had enough, no matter what I got. By the 18th of the month, I had run out. It looks like my husband needs to get more work, and it looks like he needs to give me more money. And God said something very profound to me, and He said to me, you don't need more money, you just need sense. I thought I was sensible. That started a journey that has spanned over 14 years. And I'm grateful to God that I had that conversation at that time. There are many things that I could talk about, but I want you to know that your financial principles determine the compounding effect of wealth in your life. If you want to remain small, take all your financial decisions from what the word says that finances are and how to do with finances. If you want to grow and be big and be extra in everything that God has called you to do, then you want to make sure that you focus on what the Bible says about finances and wealth. Unless you master money. Money is your master. And I think this one, it took me 2 years to learn. But the way we become wealthy is different from how the world goes. Hi everyone, my name is Bidemi Makmodi, and today I'd like to talk to you about creating financial margins as children of God. What is a margin? A margin is the space between what you need and what is left. Margins are usually how we make room in our lives so that God can, the scripture that says that when God called us to be blessed and be a blessing, can manifest. So when the Bible talks about, where I say that I want to teach us or talk about how to create margins in our lives, I'm saying that we need to take a look at financial integrity. We want to look at our financial principles and know how to make room in our lives for God via our finances. Now, I'll be the first person to tell you that I know that once in Christendom we mention finance, people begin to go crazy. But the reality is that finances are a gift from God. Wealth, let me say wealth, because finance is part of wealth. Wealth is a gift from God. The Bible says that that those who fear God, they will be full of riches, honor, and long life. So money for believers is not a nice to have, is not a I must have. Money and wealth for believers is part of our heritage. Now, if that is the case, why do we have expressions like church rats? It is because believers don't make the effort to learn how to, what I'll call, to become financially intelligent. And no, I'm not a financial analyst or even a financial coach. I'm just someone who, by the counsel and the wisdom of God, has done what I believe the Bible says I could do with my finances, so that I will grow finances and grow wealth, so that I can be a blessing in the earth. There are many things that I could talk about, but I want you to know that your financial principles determine the compounding effect of wealth in your life. If you want to remain small, take all your financial decisions from what the word says that finances are and how to do with finances. If you want to grow and be big and be extra in everything that God has called you to do, then you want to make sure that you focus on what the Bible says about finances and wealth. For instance, the word says that if you want to make money, or if you want to have a lot of money, that you should save and keep. The Bible says you should give and it shall be given to you. Full measure, pressed and shaking together, running over, men shall bring to your bosom. Now, what that suggests is that the biblical principles or kingdom principles about finance are what I call reverse psychology. They don't follow the trend of the world. And I think that's why a lot of us, or a lot of people, have problems with it. Because every financial analyst and coach and advisor will say, oh, keep it, keep it, keep it. The Bible says the liberal soul shall be made fat. So the first step to financial increase and wealth is that you must know what the Bible says about wealth. That's the first thing. The second thing would be that you must know what God says to you about the wealth He commits into your hands. So when He called Abraham, He said to Abraham, I'll bless you and I'll make you a blessing. It says in you, he said in you, your descendants, or in your descendants, the nations of the earth shall be blessed. It makes sense that Abraham couldn't gather and keep to himself, because the only way for that prophecy and that covenant to be fulfilled is that Abraham had to release what he has, and his descendants have to continue to release so that more can come and the nations of the earth can be blessed. When we talk about finances, people don't want to hear the giving part, but it is the bedrock of finances. I do not want to be top heavy on scripture. I'm just going to talk to you like we're having a simple conversation, and we want to know how to do so that our finances continue to grow. Many years ago, I was struggling financially. And no, I'm not where I want to be financially, but I'm a long way from where I started from. In that struggle, I found out that I never had enough, no matter what I got. By the 18th of the month, I had run out. And the thing is, I tithed. It wasn't that I wasn't tithing. So one day I was complaining bitterly to God, and I said, look, I don't know. My money is never enough. It looks like my husband needs to get more work, and it looks like he needs to give me more money. And God said something very profound to me, and he said to me, you don't need more money. You just need sense. Not in those exact words, but, and I thought I was sensible. And that started a journey that has spanned over 14 years. And I'm grateful to God that I had that conversation at that time. Because the first thing he said to me was, what do you want to do about the fact that your money is short? And my response was, what can I do? My money is already short. What else can I do? And that was when I learned the power in that there is he that gathereth and tendeth to little, and there is he that scattereth and tended to much. And the Lord said to me that day, determine what you will do about your finances and come back. So I sat down, and for a long time I thought I didn't have anything really. But I knew I had to take something back to God. So I went back to God and I said, well, okay, so my money is not enough. So I'm going to lay this on you. I'll give you 1,000, I'll give a 1,000 naira seed every week, so that now I have an excuse why my money is not enough. So if at the end of the month my money is still not enough, I would gladly tell everybody that it's because I sowed a seed, because now I have an excuse. And God said, that's a good deal. And he asked me specifically, said, what do you want back in return? And I said, in return, I want to always have the minimum of $100 in my wallet, not in my bank, in my wallet. And he said, done deal. And for many years after that, I'll give a seed of 1,000 naira every week. And at the end of the month, the Lord would ensure that I had the minimum of $100. And I grew from there, because what he taught me was how to depend on God for what I needed rather than another person. A few years down the line, I had gone past that. This time I was setting up my business, and I was setting up an office for my business. And the reason I even wanted to set up that office was because I was very sure that my husband would bankroll it. But in that season, my husband had a project, a kingdom project that he was working on. And what that meant was he couldn't give me money. And the only thing I knew to do was to stand in front of him and decide to put my leg on his neck, like, if you don't give me this money, trouble. But in that conversation, I remember again that the Lord came to me and said, Bidemi, who's your source? And I said, you, of course. He said, no, I'm not your source. Like, huh? If you're not my source, who's my source? He said, Mark is your source. That's my husband. And I'm like, nah, no, man cannot be my source. He said, Mark is your source. And we went back and forth for a bit. And what he did was he said to me, be still, think about it carefully. Have you ever made a financial promise or a financial commitment that you did not base on the resources that Mark might have? And when I did a quick scan, God was right as usual. I would not make a financial commitment in that season of my life unless I was sure that my husband could meet it. So God said to me in that season, say, if you come to me, I will teach you how to depend on me. I've said a number of things. Number one, know what God's financial principle is for you. There's the generic principle of the give and it shall be given to you and all of that. Then there are specific instructions for you. And this is biblical because in Genesis 26, Isaac was going to leave where he was in Gerar and go down to Egypt because there was a famine in the land. And guess what? The Lord said to him, don't go to Egypt, stay in Gerar. And the Bible said that Isaac stayed in the land where there was a famine. He sowed in that land and he reaped 100-fold. The Bible doesn't tell us that anyone else sowed in that land and reaped. I have a feeling Isaac wasn't the only one who sowed, but he was the only one that sowed by revelation. And that was why he had a harvest. So there is a place of, if you're a child of God and you want to create financial margins, you need to know what God says to you specifically about your money. I have a sister and a friend, and I've known her at least 17 years. And the one thing I can tell you specifically about this, my sister, is that she never does anything financially without instructions from God. She runs a business. I know many times she will go and pick up a payment check for her business. And as she gets in the car, she'll begin to speak to God, say, God, we've done the business. This is the money. What do you want us to do with it? I know many times God will say, maybe she picked up the check from the Ikeja part of Lagos. God will say to her, stop in Surulere, stop at so and so place, and write a further check for someone else to do XYZ. And as long as my sister has kept it that way, I have known her many years, like I said, she's never lacked. Knowing your own financial instructions that make for your financial margins. The third thing that I probably would want to highlight for you is about contentment. Another season of my life, I had gone I've gone past no money in my wallet, that to now I always had $100. I'd gone past, if my husband didn't have it, then I wouldn't have it. And now I was in another season of my life. My business had grown and God gave me another assignment. In that season of my life, he said, gather people and study the Bible with them once a week. And I started to do that. But it was always hard because I like to always, when children of God gather, I like to always entertain. And some Thursdays, we used to hold those meetings on Thursday. I would not have finances to buy a soft drink and a snack. And that really used to bother me. And I remember one day again, I went to God and I was like, God, you gave me this assignment. And I was going on and on. He's my father, so I am not afraid to talk to him. And as I started to speak to him, God said to me, Bidemi, I said, sir. He said, learn contentment. I'm like, learn contentment. I'm content, okay? I didn't go and steal. I didn't go and borrow. I'm very content. He said, no, you are not content. I said, what does that even mean? He said, sit down. Think about it carefully. If you did not do that and that and that, which are excesses, not things you needed in this season, would you have been able to entertain these people? I said, yes. And then God said to me, he said, you can't get an increase on what you already have unless you master money, because when you are not content, money is your master. And in that season again, I sat with him, and I think this one, it took me 2 years to learn. 2 years to learn that I should never say yes to buying anything if I didn't have the money. 2 years to learn that if God gave me an assignment that was financially, that involved finances, I should do God's own before I think about what I needed. In that season, I learned to be content. I realized that I had too many clothes already. I realized that I had too many shoes already. I didn't need another shoe. I didn't need another bag. And I definitely did not need what someone else had. Because the thing about not being content is you begin to want to order your life by the financial margins of another person's life. The moment, it took me 2 years, like I said, I learned how to be grateful. Because once you are not content, you will not be grateful. And once you are not grateful, then God can bless you a bit more. And the moment I learned that, oh my God, it looked to me like, in my head, like the floodgates opened. And what was small started to increase and increase and increase. And in all of this time, those particular spiritual principles, I call them revelational principles for financial margins, I have kept them. But in another season of my life, I started to learn about, say, investments. And my first instinct was, you know what? I don't have enough money to finish all the things I want to do. Why should I invest? And that was when God said to me, that's because you don't have the skill of how to do with money. And in this season of my life, I had to get a financial coach. I had to sit with someone who could advise me financially, who I was not afraid to open up my books to say, this is what I made, and this is how I spent it. And this person started to tell me that there is wisdom in how the word says that money should be managed. So even though you get the spiritual part, you live in a world where money is the currency. Paper money is the currency. And because paper money is the currency, there is a law and there are rules governing paper money. So you need to make sure that you do what you should do so that if you want an investment, then you save. I just did a series on YouTube where I talked about multiple streams of income. And I was saying that if you have just the one stream of income, maybe you have a job. Then, and even when your salary doesn't seem to be enough, you must learn to save up to an extent. Then you can now begin to invest. And someone will think, is this from the Bible? Oh yes, it is from the Bible. When, what's his name, Jacob was leaving Laban, wanted to leave Laban. Jacob was going to leave Laban with nothing because Laban had not given him any opportunity to make anything that he had promised him to make. Jacob had to go to God. God gave him divine intel. He said, go and negotiate with Laban. Tell him to leave the freckles and the spotted for you and take the ones that were clean. At that point in time, it seemed in my head that all the kids of the goats, the ewes of the lambs and all of that were one color. So he went to Laban and said, look, here's what is going to happen. From the next, I want my salary, and this is what I want. From the next set of offspring that the animals and the flock will have, take everyone that is one color and give me the spotted and the freckled one. I'm sure Laban looked around and said, we have very few freckled and spotted. So why would I not agree to this deal? But he was shocked. Because when you make those kinds when you make those kinds of connections with God and he gives you a word or divine intel, then the thing is God will go to work for you. Because in that arrangement, Jacob had now given God something to work with. The long and short of the story is that at the end of the day, if they agreed that Jacob would have one-colored animals, all the kids in that season will be one color. If Jacob agreed to take freckled, the next season, all the ones that they had would be the freckled. Why was that so? Because Jacob had come to the negotiating table. And when we think about investments and we think about savings and we think about buying into businesses, angel investing and all of that, it is reflecting on the health of your finances and deciding to sit at table with those who buy and sell, those who do business. Because that was who Laban represented to Jacob. He was a skilled businessman. He knew what to do for his partner not to ever get anything. The thing about us is when we trade like that, or we do business like God with God in our corner, we are bound to turn a profit. So when it comes to investment, people are afraid investment is risky, and I agreed with you. It's risky. But after you've done all your due diligence, there's talking to God. I believe that it was right after the pandemic, there was a particular stock that the Holy Spirit highlighted to me. The stock at that point was going for, I think, less than £1, something like that. And God said, buy this stock. It's not like I had a lot of money. I just kept buying weekly. If I had 5,000, I'll buy, because I was buying off an app, so it was easy. By last year, those stocks actually went up to something we bought for like £1. At some point, went up to 100 and something naira per stock. Why did I buy it? It wasn't like at that point the business was doing any great. But it was because the Holy Spirit, I saw some news items and I was just reading, and the Holy Spirit said, follow this person, and that business that he is on top of, buys shares there. And because the shares were so cheap, they were all over the place. Now they are not all over the place. Every time you go on the app and you want to buy, the stocks are no longer available. But in that time, I was able to buy, and that had multiplied over time. The two things happened. I sat with my financial advisor, and she told me how to buy stocks. She introduced me to apps so that I could do it at home, no matter how little money I had. And then number two, I took that information and I started to read about shares in Nigeria. Number three, I went to God with the information that I had, and he showed me the ones that I needed to do. I promise you, in that same season, somebody walked up to me and said, oh, this blue chip company, if you buy these stocks are do so well. I bought those stocks. Since I bought those stocks, I've lost money. This is over 4 years. Every time I check those stocks, I have not even been able to find an opportunity to sell them for what I bought them for. When man tells you and when God tells you. Here's the point as I bring this to a close. I know this is not a church teaching, so I'm not drilling. But the point is that we are spiritual beings and we walk with God. The point is that it is God's delight to give us wealth. And the reason God wants to give us wealth is because he wants us to have financial margins so that we will be useful to his creation on the earth. He wants us to be our brother's keeper. He wants someone to not have accommodation and you are able to contribute. He wants someone to not have food on their table and you are able to contribute. He wants, when someone is ill, rather than go fund me, brethren in church can rally together and pay the person's hospital bills and save lives. Until they begin to spend any other thing on earth, believers ought to be wealthy. But the way we become wealthy is different from how the world goes. The word says cheat. The word says the end justifies the means. But in kingdom, we follow the principles of God, generic principles. Principles like tithing that you don't want to hear. Principles like giving that you don't want to hear. Then you go to God for your own specific financial instructions. Learn contentment. When you have mastered that to an extent, seek financial counsel and advice. The beauty about this counsel and advice is there are 50,000, yes, I said it, coaches on Instagram, all at every level, that can teach you financial literacy. The moment you get that information, take it back to God and let God distill revelation out of the knowledge and information you have. Brethren, all of creation earnestly awaits the manifestation of the sons of God. And one way that we must manifest is that we need to be a body of Christ that will stop having to beg unbelievers for the resources to do the work of God. We have the Spirit of God. We have God's breath in us. We have the capacity to be able to do what we need to do and have extra, which accounts for the margins. I'm grateful for the opportunity to be able to sit here and talk to you. And then who knows, maybe I'll come your way again. But if you have questions, send them to the owners of this channel, and I promise you I'll come back with answers if there are any questions. Thank you so much for taking the time whatever time you're watching this. I know that inside of you is a seed for wealth. And because of that, I'd like to pray for you. Father, in the name of Jesus, you've sown a seed in your sons and your daughters' lives. And Lord, that seed is so that you will bless them and they will become a blessing. Father, I ask for grace and understanding, that the eyes of their understanding will be enlightened, that they will get behind that which you've called them to do, that they will put to work your gifting in them, so that everything that pertains to life and godliness will become theirs, so that your name and your name alone will be glorified. Father, I thank you because you hear me. In Jesus' mighty name, we have prayed. Amen. Thank you. God bless you.